everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on The Great Pretender, episode 3. I really have enjoyed episodes 1 and episodes 2. Getting into this series, episode 1 was it was a good pilot, a nice thing to get you used to the idea that things are not going to be what they seem, and that there's going to be twists and turns like any good caper. But then the last episode was really good in setting up Makoto's character, in setting up his motivation. He's got family ties to possibly a criminal through his dad, and then how Laurent got involved in all this. And then by the end of it, Makoto's like, no, I'm not going to give up. I really don't have anything to go back to in Japan. My mother's passed. My father is MIA and not in the picture. So, and I do not have a warrant out for my arrest at the moment. So why go back? He's like, if I need that as a last resort, I can, but I'm not going to give up to this Laurent guy and let him take all the credit for this drug and everything. That's just candy. I'm not going to let him pull off this con. I'm here to do a job. Let's do this. So, and Laurent didn't even seem to expect it at the end. So I'm very, very curious to see how Laurent deals with this Makoto that's a little bit more spunkier than he has seemed so far. I feel like Makoto's got to get his engines warmed up, right? He wants to settle in his element first, but then once he gets going, it's a different story. And I love Abby's character. Abby's character's great. I love her. She's so fierce and just such a really fun character. I didn't think I would like her character when I started because I didn't know how they would treat her in this series. No, it's great. But like the style of this series, the animation, it's Sadamoto. I'm here for it. And so I can definitely tell how you all were recommending it because so far I'm only 2 episodes in, but it's a pretty fun little romp. I'm not going to lie. And if every episode has like a thread that we build upon as we're going through all these little capers and the thing with this, I am a little bit worried though, because Makoto has raised the stakes from 5 million for this drug to 10 million. And I'm like, that's not chump change. That's not baby money. That is like some serious dollars, and you're messing with the mafia and you are pulling an elaborate con. There is no drug. So you're just going to take the 10 million and run? How you pinning this on somebody else? How's that working? So I don't know. I don't know how we're doing it, but I'm really excited to see what we get out of this series. I hope you all are as well, but we're not gonna waste any more time, y'all. I'm excited to start The Great Pretender episode 3. I hope you all are too. So we're gonna do exactly that and start The Great Pretender episode 3. And we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, this series knows how to raise your blood pressure. And we're only 3 episodes in. Oh my gosh. So we got new characters. We got the plot thickens. We're just going to dig deeper. Dig our graves deeper. I know that this series is fairly long. Like it's 25 episodes and we're only on episode 3. So they've got to get out of this somehow. But man, they are digging themselves in deep, and I'm like, Makoto Edamura, oh my gosh, we established a lot of things. I didn't bring out Whiteboard Kun for this because there are some things we could talk about with Whiteboard Kun, but mainly it's just building. This episode feels like it's a build-up. I don't know how many parts the Los Angeles connection will be, and I don't want to know. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but this is definitely setting up, this episode was setting up a lot of little pieces on the board that I'm so intrigued by. But oh my gosh, like we basically set up 2 characters and then we elaborated on a few others. The 2 characters we set up is Paula Dickens, she feels like, if you've watched Banana Fish, there is a detective in that series whose name is Dickens, and I always was like, oh, like Charles Dickens. It was like, but their name is Dickens in it, and they're kind of redheaded, if I recall. And her being redheaded made me think that maybe the mangaka was making like an homage to Dickens by having her be one of the FBI agents. I thought maybe that would be the case. That's kind of cool. But then, so we met her. She's like Sylvia Sherwood off Spy Family. She's very like put together, like no nonsense. This is how we do it. And I love her already. And then Anderson is our jaded cop who is in the mafia's pocket. And he has to pull off a convincing ruse he has to be his own con man to convince his team that he's trying to get Kasano, but not be effective, right? He has to be convincing enough. And she calls him out on it. She's like, oh, how's your daughter going to boarding school? And your wife having a nice villa, a penthouse villa on your salary? How's that work? And you're buying Armani suits? How's that work? It's like, ah! She's like, if we dig far enough, we can find out lots of things. And it's like, oh my God. There's just so much good in this series. And this episode, the animation, flawless. I love the animation. I love the style. I love all of that. The chase scene was fun. Like, just like the geometric prints and everything, like the colors, it's so saturated. It's wonderful. But one thing I really liked, again, there's some like Neon Genesis references I can see already with this series, kind of tying to Sadamoto. Maybe that's why he wanted to work on it, because this whole first opening scene where he orders the burgers. He wants no pickles. Anderson wants no pickles on his burgers. Make that noted, right? But he asked the guy at the drive-thru, he wants 8 cheeseburgers and 2 double-doubles and he keeps on talking. I love that the guy at the register looks like every guy at every fast food restaurant when you order for a large group. They're just like, like the just big exhale. I always felt bad if I was in a big group and we went to a fast food restaurant and we came up more like, all right, we're going to need 16 cheeseburgers. And the person behind the cash register's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's what this guy's face looks like. It's glorious. But also, not only that, I got the Neon Genesis reference vibe from that. I love this kind of like just slice of life office living. It's not a thing that's exclusive to Neon Genesis alone. I'm not going to say that. But having just watched that series and this series replacing it, it does feel like a moment from that series where you'd have like Alba or somebody go out and get burgers for everybody and bring them back. That's how Anderson's moment does, where it feels like a little slice of life moment that it's not necessary for the plot. We didn't need to see from the plot that he goes out and gets this for others, but it's adding a little bit more to his character, like getting a little bit in there, like that he doesn't like pickles. It's taking what could be a flat character and starting to make them more three-dimensional. And I love that. I love that this show is taking the time to do these little tiny moments. And the guy's like, oh my God, you want all this food? And he's like, and then the car honks. He's like, shut up and wait. But they have a stakeout. The LAPD does, and he like brings in, he's like, lunch day is my treat, so eat up. And he brings him like all the meal and everything. And everybody there, it's interesting because even though Anderson is he's a jaded cop and he is corrupt in that he's helping the mafia, even though he's doing that, it's still, this scene adds a little bit to his character and shows he's not a bad person. He does get food for his team. And his team, when they kind of like all smile at him, they all like him, right? So when Pola comes on the scene and she like grabs him by the tie, it's like, this is how it's gonna be. I love that everybody in that scene just like flips her off and they're just like giving her the like most sour look as they're like giving her the bird. Like they don't like her at all. But she came in, she's like, I'm here to lay down the law and actually catch this mob man. And they don't appreciate how she's treating their boss. It's like that little dynamic. It's really cool. But man, yeah, the LAPD, they're just going by with whatever they can, right? And they have the telescope. We don't have any leads. And I love that he takes a bite and he gets pickles. He's like, my team is so capable. And I'm just saying, you have Anderson, and then there's the guy who looks like Erwin Smith from Attack on Titan, the other guy. Here, I'm just saying, Anderson gets mad because his burger has pickles in it, and the guy that looks like Erwin Smith offers him his burger he's taking a bite out of. It could have been an indirect kiss. Am I shipping them? Yes. Yes! Anderson and Erwin Smith doppelganger. I am totally shipping in this show already. They help each other the entire time. They were going to offer an indirect burger kiss. We need this. An In-N-Out burger kiss. Come on. Let's do this show. And he throws his burger. Anderson throws his burger at the Erwin Smith doppelganger and it hits the other guy on the shoulder and gets ketchup all over him. It's great. But yeah, Edamura, my dude, what we doing? So he's like, a man who sneaked into a big shot's wallet and gained great riches. Japan had the best con artist in history as well. And he refers to the samurai, right? He refers to Toyotomi Hideyoshi. And he's like, now come on, Laurent, massage my feet. The thing of it is that I don't think Makoto realized like how deep Kasano was willing to go. And he just dug his own grave in this episode, because I like that. I get the impression that when we hit episodes as the series goes on, it's going to keep backtracking. Like we're going to jump ahead to a scene like him walking to the airport, and then we're going to backtrack the next episode to before that scene and see what led up to it, and then we're going to get a bigger picture of the puzzle as we go. And it's these kind of series that I really like, because I like that we think we have an idea of where it's going, and then in the next episode we get a little bit more. I'm like, all right, show, I'm here for it. Let's do this. I love it. It's great. But yeah, so he goes to the video rental store and has this genius idea that he's gonna watch all of the Razzie films. And the funny thing is, he actually ends up liking them. He actually ends up liking these terrible movies. Like they're clearly terrible. It looks like Mad Max with a terrible Asian stereotype, and one guy has like a baguette and then bread nunchucks. Like it looks like the worst thing. But somehow Edamura actually ended up liking it, and he wrote out this fake recipe. Like he got ballsy and went there to appease to Kasano and told his sob story, and it was believable. And the thing about it is speaking of Attack on Titan, one of the big phrases in that series is that every lie has a hint of truth. And that's what makes Makoto such a convincing con man, is because his con here with Kasano, there is a bit of truth in it. Like he knows kind of what it's like to work hard for something and have that taken away from you. He knows what that's like. And he knows how to take something seriously and then have it like taken away. So when he gives this big impassioned act in front of Kasano, it is somewhat believable because he's drawing from some real life inspiration to do it. Right? But he's also a great actor, and he's charming. He's a salesman. He's been able to woo audiences for years, right? Doing those little sales pitches. So to try to scam people. So yeah. But I love that he almost acts a little over the top when he talks about the films. But again, there's some truth in the lie. He actually did like the movies. So when he overgushes about them, it's coming from a place of honesty, because he did like the films. So he's just kind of over exaggerating how much he liked them and that they're like his Bible or whatnot. But that's exactly what Kasano wants to hear. I want to make note, this entire time that Makoto is making his big impassioned speech, Salazar is off in the back like, you're full of shit. We've barely gotten into Salazar's character, but he's just looking back there like, sure, kid. Sure, Jan. What makes note is that we noted a few episodes ago that Salazar used to be a boss of his own gang, and it kind of became absorbed by Kasano. So he's been a mob boss before. He knows how this song and dance works. It's just funny that he's just looking at Makoto like, you're good, kid, but dear God. Like, I don't think that Salazar believes him, or he's just going along with it, right? The Rising Razzie series. And that's when he does the whole thing about asking for double. And Makoto's like, what would you sell your children for? He's like, this is my baby, and I'm not just going to sell it for nothing. And then he offers to add the recipe, which in the notebook, and he's like, what? And he says, anybody can make soccer magic if you follow this. It's everything to me. He's like, but I'm okay if it's for you. I like that when he withdrew the notebook, he didn't say, I was expecting him to say, when he has the notebook open, he's like, this recipe is everything to me. And Kasano reaches for it. He pulls it away, and it's such a good move. It's such a good con move. Because he pulls it away, and what you think he's going to say is, but only if you give me 10 million. Like, you think he's going to, like, use it as a bribe, right? But instead, he does the suave move, and he goes, but I would offer it to you. Like just stroking that ego, right? Because Cassano's a proud man. Cassano takes these films, oddly enough, seriously, even though they're terrible. And he doesn't think anybody else does. And Makoto is just stroking that ego, being like, oh, I take your film seriously if you take my offer seriously. And it's like, it's such a smooth move. And I'm amazed Makoto pulls it off. But Makoto can talk the talk, but I feel like Laurent is the one that walks the walk. Like, Laurent had everything already in place, which we'll talk about that dinner scene. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, he just digs himself in a grave. He's like, is $10 million too much? And he's like, it's too cheap. And he's like, okay. And so that's how they get there. And Laurent is just sitting there like the cat that ate the canary. He's like, look at you. Look at you doing all this by yourself. Isn't that amazing? Aww. He calls it a draw later. He calls the bet a draw, which Makoto doesn't seem very thrilled about. He's like, no, I won the bet. And I feel like Laurent says it's going to be a draw because Laurent's like, I'm going to get your ass out of this mess that you've dug yourself into. So then we'll call it a draw, right? At that point, we won't be each other's slaves, right? It's great. And then I love that Makoto's like, the Razzie series is the greatest work of our time. And Abby's like, oh my God, the moron actually liked it. And Laurent's like, oh, well, maybe that's part of his acting, right? It could be a talent too. I love that Makoto asks if the sunken ship scene was so intense. But of course, they bring in a guy to verify everything. Because, yeah, it's $10 million. You wouldn't just hand that money over for nothing, right? And they call in the crack team to go investigate him. And Laurent, at this point, Laurent knows that when they go to investigate him, he's already put everything in place. So he is not sweating a bit. Laurent is just cool as a cucumber, being like, here's our doctor. And Makoto's like, I don't like social media. I'm not very social. I don't have much of a record. And Laurent, playing the long game, probably suspected that at some point Cassano was going to send his men to go investigate Makoto, and had the other two con artists there in place to kind of pull off the scene. But it's a great misdirect. Like, it's a great misdirect in the moment, because I seriously am like, it's like they are dangling on the edge of a knife this entire episode. And I'm like, if they do just one little thing wrong, it could all collapse. And these are the kind of series I love, because you're left guessing, like, how are they going to get out of it? How are they going to make it work? How are they going to escape the situation, right? And that's exactly what this episode does the entire time, is make you like go through the twists and turns that are associated with it. But I was worried for Makoto, and he tries to leave, and then Salazar's right in the way, and he's like, you ain't leaving. I feel like Salazar has to be on to Makoto. I feel like Salazar has to know something's up, right? There's been too many missed opportunities, but I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Salazar to let Cassano go down if it meant he could escape. I don't know. Maybe Salazar's working with Pola. Who knows? I just feel like he's seen enough from Edamura that he knows that something's up, but he's not offered anything to Cassano about it. So that's curious, right? But then, yeah, he welcomes him to the family. And then we see like all these forged photos, right? These forged photos of him in the suit and everything with the people. And who knows where those photos are actually from, right? Or how they've been fabricated. But yeah, they basically talk about him being on holiday, and they get all their stuff and leave, right? The fabricated awards, everything, just in time for the doctor to come back. Like, just the narrowest of escapes. The narrowest of escapes. And so they decide to make this transaction over in a warehouse, right? And Laurent's like, let's consider this bet a draw. Because Laurent's like, you're going to need my help getting out of this mess. So let's just call it a draw and say that there were no winners. So yeah, they go to do the transaction away. And then Laurent and them suspect. And then that's when Cassano says that Anderson's chased him for years. And that's when they decide to make their getaway in the limo. And are followed, of course, by Erwin Smith and Anderson. That was a great misdirect too, because the chase scene is actually really, really good. Yeah, and Laurent kind of seems onto it because he's like, he doesn't look like a complete idiot. Like you don't really get to know how much Laurent knows. It's like, we as the audience don't really know how much Laurent is privy to and how much he's not. And the whole doctor scene where he had everything already set up just makes you even more suspicious because it's like, how far ahead has Laurent planned? What all does he have in store for our poor boy Makoto? Because he already had X, Y, and Z thought out. So what is his contingency plan for getting out of this mess? And what are they going to do? But yeah, I did not think for a second that Anderson was working for Cassano until they revealed it. I had no idea because they make it so convincing. And they do, Abby being like, oh, a car chase. The car chase was really well done. It was very realistic. I liked it. It was great. And then they managed to get out. And I love that Laurent's like over there peeking, like giving a wink to Edamura. Laurent is taking every opportunity he can to like snuggle up next to Makoto. And he's like, how's it going? Any injuries, Anderson? And then so Laurent didn't realize that Anderson was on his side. Okay, because that look that he just gave. And then Laurent's like, okay, you have the LAPD in your pocket because Anderson's on your side. And then they're like, cheers. It's great. And so they're thinking about a place to go to, and they go to the wharf first. And then they find out that this is where they're making the drugs at. Like they've got this little operation, right? When he started talking about the sushi place, I'll be honest, when he started talking about the sushi place, I thought that he had been at the restaurant that Laurent and Makoto had been when they first got there and was talking about, I thought he had been there when they were talking about the con game and knew who they were. So I thought he was going to out that, but instead he was talking about this analogy of a sushi restaurant chef leaving and the sushi not being as good even when they use the same recipe. And I was like, oh no. So they want to keep Makoto there to make the drugs. Because of course they do, which is not at all good. He's like, the recipe is not what makes the first-rate dish. You need careful and thorough training. Sakura Magic is first-rate, isn't it? So you have to make it too. That's how right in front of us. That's how we're gonna test it. Which, to be fair, they could have basically told him that this is a complicated process. You gotta have the right equipment. But he took the recipe that was pretty easy, right? Also, I want to make note, my new ship of Anderson and Erwin Doppelganger. He's like helping Erwin Doppelganger up the stairs, like with his arm around him. Just saying, if I gotta ship anything, it's gonna be these two right now. But then they get in there and it's like they're being completely ignored. We have 3 FBI agents here. We have Pola and these other 2 guys. And I love that it pans over to his crew and his crew's just like, they completely took over. And she's like, we're working. I love that she stands up. She's like, I'm an FBI special agent, Pola Dickens. And they're like, and she is the L of this series. He's like, you're the detective who, she's like, oh, which are you referring to? Are you talking about who caught Nicholas Moreira? Who broke up the Simon family? Or she's like, I'm replacing you and your incompetence and taking over. So she's basically like L. She's the lead of the FBI and she's like famous for solving these cases. Fun times. And she knows an awful lot about these characters so far. He's like, this is my mountain and we're not incompetent. And she grabs his tie and says, yes, sir, you are. And she says, does that mean you're not deliberately arresting him? Detective Anderson. And that's when she threatens him. She's like, I know about you and I can put stuff on you if you want me to. I'm like, yes, girl. Slay, please. I'm excited. She's like, either you can go to jail, lose your job and family, or you can work with me and regain your pride as a detective. She's like, you can either quit being a fraud and go back to doing what you're supposed to do, or I'm going to out you and you can rot in jail. I'm like, She's like, make your choice. And meanwhile, and then we cut straight to Makoto, who is like about to lose his shit because he's like, I can't make this in front of everybody. And he's like, all right, get to it, show us. And Laurent and Abby are like, this could go terribly wrong. What do we do? And he's like, I can't do it. And then he makes up the lie. Like the lies just get deeper and deeper. It's like he tells the sob story, and then he says that he can't, he'll give him the recipe, and then he's like, I can't make these goods in these inferior conditions. He's like, this has to be special. And Cassano, I feel like Cassano is just like gonna get him, like sinking his claws in deeper and deeper. He's like, oh, well, don't worry. $10 million? We'll just make a new facility to make it in. We'll just renovate all this. And it's like, oh my God. Like he's just sinking his claws in, and the hole that is being dug is getting deeper and deeper. I'm like, oh no. And then Laurent is like, Eddie, you've never seen this lab, have you? It's immaculate. And Abby uses like, she goes, I heard sushi chefs are careful. Like, she tries to add in her own way by being, she plays up the act too by making it seem like they're right. And he's like, Abby, shut up. And then Makoto's like, yep, I need this facility to be exactly like my lab. And that's what they offer. So then Anderson said he's going to help Pola catch them. And she's like, fine. And she goes to the telescope. She's like, we'll give you credit when we catch Cassano. And I love that all four of them all look at her with such contempt, right? And she says, our target is Laurent Thierry's gang. So she knows Laurent. So she has been researching Makoto, and she knows Laurent. So he's well known in the underworld. How much does she know about him, right? And she says that their target is Laurent's gang, a group of international swindlers. We've identified the Asian, Makoto Edamura, Japanese. He's been convicted of fraud in Japan, which is like the fraud he was convicted of is the minor thing that we talked about last episode that wasn't even a thing. But again, it's the past follows him wherever he goes, right? That little tiny thing is now what she's going to try to use to convict him, right? So she knows a lot about Laurent. I'm curious if they have history and what it is. But I also love that the moment she looks in the telescope that these guys, they all get the like flipper off. They look like they've seen Excalibur off Soul Eater is what they look like. It's great. We can see he was recruited by Laurent and is swindling Cassano. I love it. I love that they just flip her off when she's not looking. And even Anderson, using this information will get the Laurent gang and Cassano in one fell swoop. Where's your response, LAPD? Yes, ma'am. So yeah, I'll get a picture of the three of them. So yeah, she thinks that they're gonna, I was worried at first when we found out that Anderson was in Cassano's pocket. I was like, oh, well, there goes the angle of the PD catching Cassano and that giving them the out, right? That was my fear. But now that she's on the scene, Dickens is, I'm like, okay, well, then she could help catch Cassano. I'm wondering if she does have connections with Laurent. And if she's his way of escaping. If Laurent's like, Pola's on the scene, she's going to help me get out of this by catching Cassano. If Laurent, because she knows about Laurent, so if she's such a good detective, why hasn't she caught Laurent yet? Right? I wonder if just like Dickens was in Cassano's pocket, if Pola is not necessarily in Laurent's pocket, well, unless they're, romantically intertwined, perhaps. I'm thinking of the ED, possibly. But it could be that she has worked with Laurent before, and Laurent's like, look, we'll do this con or whatever, and we'll get you to catch these criminals. How about that? I don't know, but I'm thinking that she's at least, I feel like, going to be one of the reasons that Cassano gets caught, which would allow Laurent and Makoto and Abby to escape. But the question is, how are they going to escape her and not Cassano? So I don't know how that's going to work. But when you cut to them in the car, Abby's asleep. We don't know if she's acting or not. Makoto is terrified, not acting. And Laurent just looks like, this is fine. He's like, he is the epitome of the dog with the fire around him in the coffee mug. Like, this is fine. We got this. I'm like, do you? Do you have this, sir? I don't know. And so he's like, don't hold back. And then he leaves them in Salazar's hands until the renovations are done. And he's like, yeah, don't be shy. It's a homestay at Salazar's place. He's like, a homestay? And then I like that Laurent's like, well, the doctor can stay with me. It's like, of course he would say that. And then Makoto's like, yes, please, anywhere but there. And he's like, no. An important guest can't stay at a hotel. Keep him comfortable at all hours. And I like that where they take him to is this little house. There's like kid toys everywhere. And he says, I'll use the sofa downstairs. But this house is so weird. Like there's kids' toys on the bed, like the desk right next to it. And he says, don't touch anything. But then there's booze bottles and like a trash can. It's the weirdest, combination, right? Because yeah, there's a trash bin with wrappers and clothes and stuff on the ground. But then it's like a kid's room. What in the world? Yeah, no, this is the worst. Oh my gosh. And Laurent and Abby are clearly away, so I am wondering if I could see it going both ways. I could see Pola being an aid to Laurent and helping him get out of the mess. Or I could see her actually wanting to bust Laurent, but Laurent's been able to evade her. And then in the midst of them catching Cassano, it allows Laurent, Makoto, and Abby to get away. I could see it going both ways at this point. Either she's going to be helping him or they're going to escape through her. That's the question, but I don't know which one it is. I do not know. But man, this episode was really, really good. Really good. And I'm very, very excited to see how are we getting out of this? I feel like they just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper. And it's going to be one of those things where we're not going to know until the very end how they managed to escape and do it all. And that's the part I always love the best in mystery stories like this. I'm like, yes, please show us these things. So, but I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, hints, or clues, but I'm curious to know your comments. I hope you all love this reaction discussion. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait till episode 4. I might have to watch ahead. We'll see. But in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yes, I'll be back very soon with episode 4 of The Great Pretender. Bye.